Amy's ultimate revenge. Matt forced to destroy new fence after Chris exposes Caryn illegal land grab. Something explosive just happened at Roloff Farms. A fence that Matt proudly built around the property has suddenly been torn down. Not quietly, not peacefully, but after a confrontation that insiders say left the entire family stunned. And at the center of it all are Amy Roloff, Matt Roloff, Chris Marek, and Caryn Chandler. For years fans of Little People Big World have watched the tension grow between Amy and Matt after their divorce. But what many people did not expect was how deeply the conflict over Roloff Farms would spiral. Land boundaries, ownership rights, and accusations of a quiet land grab. Now sources claim that Chris uncovered something that changed everything. A fence line that may have crossed into land that Matt no longer had the right to control. And when Amy realized what was happening, the situation exploded into what many fans are calling her ultimate revenge. Today we are going to break down what really happened at Roloff Farms. Why the fence became the center of a family conflict. What Chris reportedly discovered about the property lines. And why Matt may have been forced to take the entire structure down. But before we go deeper, we need to rewind. Because this story did not begin with a fence. It began years ago with a marriage, a farm, and a decision that would divide a family forever. Chapter 1. The farm that built a family. 4 decades Roloff Farms was more than just land. It was the heart of the Roloff family legacy. A place where Matt Roloff and Amy Roloff built their lives together while raising their 4 children. The farm became famous after Little People Big World premiered in 2006. Viewers watched the family navigate everyday life while managing a massive property filled with attractions, pumpkin season events, and childhood memories. Matt always described the farm as his dream project. He constantly built new structures, towers, and attractions. He imagined the property becoming a generational legacy that one of the kids would one day take over. Amy had a different relationship with the farm. For her, it represented family life, years of hard work, and raising her children. But behind the scenes their marriage was already beginning to fracture. When Matt and Amy eventually divorced, the future of the farm became uncertain. Both still owned portions of the property, and neither wanted to completely walk away from something that had defined their lives for decades. At first they tried to maintain peace. But the emotional weight of shared ownership would eventually turn into one of the most complicated battles the family had ever faced. Chapter 2. The property divide. After the divorce, Matt and Amy faced a huge decision. What would happen to Roloff Farms? Amy eventually sold her portion of the farm to Matt in a deal that shocked many viewers. Fans believed the land might pass down to one of their children. Instead, Matt took full control of the main property. For Amy, the decision was painful. Leaving the farm meant closing a chapter of her life. She moved to a new home not far away and began building a new life with Chris Marek. Chris entered the family quietly, calm, supportive, and very different from Matt's larger-than-life personality. At first, Chris tried to stay neutral. He understood how sensitive the farm situation was. But as time passed, he began noticing something that others had overlooked. The boundaries of the property were more complicated than they appeared. Chapter 3. Caryn's growing influence. While Amy was starting a new life, Matt was also moving forward. And standing beside him was Caryn Chandler. Caryn had worked on Roloff Farms for years before the divorce. Over time, her relationship with Matt became more serious. Eventually, she became deeply involved in the future plans for the farm. Fans quickly noticed that Caryn seemed to have strong opinions about the property. From renovation ideas to business decisions, she appeared increasingly involved in what would happen next. Some viewers supported Matt and Caryn as a new chapter. Others felt uneasy. They believed the farm carried too much history with Amy and the kids to be reshaped so quickly. But the tension truly escalated when Matt began making new changes to the land. One of those changes was a new fence. Chapter 4. The fence that sparked everything. At first the fence seemed harmless. Matt reportedly wanted to define certain areas of the property more clearly. A fence would help separate sections of land and create privacy for future projects. Construction crews began installing the fence line. Posts went into the ground. Sections of the boundary were reshaped. But something about the placement caught Chris's attention. Chris had spent years working in real estate and property development. He understood land surveys and legal boundaries better than most people around the farm. And what he noticed immediately raised questions. The fence did not appear to follow the original boundary lines. Chapter 5. Chris takes a closer look. Instead of ignoring the issue, Chris reportedly started investigating quietly. He reviewed property maps. He compared survey lines. And he spoke with people familiar with the original division of Roloff Farms. The more he looked, the more uncomfortable the situation became. According to reports circulating among fans and insiders, the fence might have extended into land that had once been part of Amy's ownership area. Even though Amy had sold her portion of the farm to Matt, certain boundaries and agreements were still extremely specific. A fence placed incorrectly could create serious legal complications. Chris knew that if the structure crossed the wrong line, it could appear as if someone was claiming land that did not legally belong to them. And that is when Amy finally learned what was happening. Chapter 6. Amy confronts the situation. When Amy heard about the potential boundary problem, emotions reportedly ran high. The farm had already been one of the most painful chapters of her life. Selling her portion had not been easy. Now the idea that someone might be expanding control beyond the agreed lines pushed her to confront the situation directly. Amy has always been known for speaking her mind. And those close to the family say she did not stay quiet for long. Questions were raised. Documents were reviewed. And suddenly the new fence became the center of a serious dispute. For Matt, the situation was both personal and public. Because anything that happens at Roloff Farms rarely stays private for long. Chapter 7. The pressure builds. As the disagreement grew, pressure reportedly mounted around the property. Neighbors began noticing the construction activity. Fans online started speculating about changes happening at the farm. Within the family, tensions were already fragile. The idea that the fence might be crossing into disputed territory added another layer of conflict. Chris continued pushing for clarity. If the fence followed the correct survey lines, there would be no problem. But if it did not, the consequences could be serious. Eventually the situation reached a point where one solution became unavoidable. The fence would need to come down. Chapter 8. Matt faces a difficult decision. For Matt Roloff, the farm has always been about building, creating, expanding. Being forced to remove a structure he had just built was not something he likely expected. But when property lines and legal boundaries are involved, pride cannot win against documentation. Reports claim that after reviewing the surveys and hearing the concerns raised by Chris and Amy, the decision was made to dismantle the fence. Workers returned to the property. But this time they were not installing posts. They were removing them. To many fans, the moment symbolized something deeper. It felt like the first time Amy had truly pushed back against changes happening at the farm since the divorce. Chapter 9. Fans react. As news of the situation spread online, fans of Little People Big World began debating what really happened. Some viewers praised Chris for paying attention to the property details. They believed he was protecting Amy's rights and making sure the farm's history was respected. Others defended Matt, arguing that property boundaries can be confusing and mistakes happen during construction projects. And of course, many fans focused on Caryn's role in the situation. Was she influencing Matt's decisions about the farm? Or was she simply supporting him while he managed the property? The truth may be somewhere in between. But one thing is clear. Roloff Farms is still at the center of intense emotions. Chapter 10. The future of the farm. Today the question remains. What will happen to Roloff Farms in the future? Matt once dreamed that one of his children would eventually take over the property. But years of disagreements have complicated that plan. Amy has built a new life with Chris. Matt continues managing the farm while planning future projects. And the land that once symbolized family unity now carries the weight of years of unresolved tension. The fence may be gone, but the deeper story behind it still lingers. Because when land holds decades of memories, every boundary line becomes personal. The story of Roloff Farms is not just about property. It is about family history, broken relationships, and the complicated process of moving forward after a life built together. Whether the fence situation was a simple mistake or a serious misunderstanding may never be fully clear to the public. But what it revealed is something deeper. Even years after the divorce, the past between Matt and Amy still shapes the future of the farm. And as long as Roloff Farms stands, the story of this family will continue to unfold. Because sometimes the biggest battles are not fought in courtrooms. They happen quietly, along the boundary lines of the places we once called home.